Well, hello there, everybody. My name's Didi Verg, and I'm your host on Let's Talk Hypnosis, brought to you by Hypnothoughts 2018 Live. And today it is my very special privilege to introduce to you Shawn Carson. Welcome to the show, Con.
Hi, Didi. Thanks for inviting me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let me tell you a little bit about Shawn. Shawn is the co-founder of the Intelligent Hypnotist and a certified humanistic neuro-linguistic psychology trainer, a hypnosis trainer, and a brain-based leadership trainer. He's also the co-author of over 16 books and is the recipient of the prestigious IACT Pen and Quill Award. When Shawn isn't training or writing, he's busy working with clients from around the world. So at this year's Hypnothoughts, Shawn is going to be offering a 1-hour workshop on John Overdurf in a nutshell and a 3-day pre-conference workshop entitled Conversational Hypnotic Coaching, an Introduction to Overdurfian Hypnotic Coaching. So Shawn, tell us a little bit about John Overdurf and who he is for those who are wondering.
Okay, well, thanks for the introduction. I don't know who that amazing person was that you described, but thanks very much anyway. So John Overdurf is our teacher, mentor, friend. He's the co-founder of H-NLP.
Okay.
H-NLP came out of NLP. So NLP, if you know anything about NLP, the sort of the predicate of NLP is the idea of the mind as a computer. Mm-hmm. So when we do change work, we are sort of rewiring the computer, which is kind of okay on a neural basis if you think of change work as being rewiring neurons. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of not a very good approach if you're dealing with an actual person in front of you who has all the stuff a person
with
has.
With feelings and emotions.
Feelings, emotions, that's exactly right. That's absolutely perfectly right. So the H-NLP approach, as developed by John and his ex-partner, Julie Silverthorne, really takes that idea that a person is not a computer, and the principal difference between a person and a computer is a person has a body. Mm-hmm. And it's the body which allows a person to actually feel emotions. Right? Computers don't have a body, so a computer can't feel emotions in the same way that we can.
Right.
So the basis of H-NLP coaching is we're coaching the body.
Okay, so you're taking into account all the emotions and everything that goes along with.
We are primarily coaching the body. So what that means is essentially, in the first instance, and we're not ignoring the brain, the mind, but in the first instance, we're looking to change the response the body has to the context and the trigger which would normally cause the client a problem. Right. So even if the client doesn't think they're changing, if we see the physiological change in how they react to the stimulus, we know we're moving in the right direction.
Okay, good. Okay.
And then once we've got that change, then more towards the end of the process, we allow the conscious mind to catch up with the fact that they've changed.
Oh, so it's kind of like slipping in a little change under the radar.
Yeah, so if you think about the brain, the brain has two ways of functioning. It's got top-down, which means you think about what you want and you go and do it. Sounds great. And then there's bottom-up, which means your body reacts to the context in which you're in, and then the brain makes sense of it afterwards. Okay. So if you take like the simple case of a smoker, right? The smoker comes into your office and says, "I want to stop smoking," right? Then stop smoking. It's very easy if you think about top down, right? All they have to do is to stop smoking.
Yes. Very rational, very logical.
Very rational, right? This is a bad thing. It costs me money. It's bad for my health. Therefore, I'll stop it. Some people do that, right? They go, "Okay, I'll stop," and they throw the cigarettes away, and they don't need to come and see you. But the ones who can't, that top-down processing where they want to stop just doesn't work for them. Okay. So really, change work for most of the clients who walk into your office is about that bottom up. The body comes first, and then the mind is making sense of that.
Right. Amazing. Because you also talk about, so I understand that you also do brain-based coaching. So, and tell us a little bit about that and how that works into everything that you're talking about.
Right. So brain-based basically means we take into account how the brain. And we say brain-based, but really it's the brain and the body. Okay. Right. It's the nervous system. So it's the brain, but it reaches out to the very front of the eyes. It reaches out to the ears. It reaches out to the skin. It reaches out to the organs. It reaches out to the end of every nerve in your body.
Okay.
And we're considering how that works in terms of if we're running a training course, if it's training, then how does the person's brain and neurology actually work, and how do we use that to help them to learn? So again, if we think about, as an example, top-down and bottom-up, top-down type of training means you sit the people in front of you and you give them a bunch of information.
Sure.
Right? So then rationally, they know that information and they can apply it. But we all know that's not how the training works, right? They take that information in and then they forget about it because it didn't mean anything. It didn't connect with who they are as a person, right? So bottom-up the training, or inductive type of training, is you give your class an experience, right? So they experience something and then you explain what that experience means and how to use that experience in their practice, so that it first gets wired into their body and then their brain makes sense of it at the end.
And that makes perfect sense. So John Overdurf, for those of you, people out there who don't know exactly who he is, he's got a lot of great followers. I know Melissa Tears follows him. I believe Igor Ledovsky follows him. Yeah. There's a lot of people that use him as their mentor. So tell us a little bit about the 3-day, it's a pre-conference, correct?
It is a pre-conference, yeah. So it's the 3 days prior to the conference.
So this is entitled Conversational Hypnotic Coaching, an Introduction to Overdurfian Hypnotic Coaching. So what can people expect to take away with them when they take this sort of training based on John Overdurf?
So the training, the purpose of the training really is to give people a complete view of the Overdurfian style of training, i.e. how do you actually coach the body. You coach the body in the first instance, and then you allow the mind to catch up. So if you think about how different people train, different people train at different levels of abstraction. So if you think of a Melissa Tears, for example, she'll give a 1 hour training and she'll show you 10 or 15 different things, right? So she chunks down to a level of techniques where she's showing you one relatively small compact thing, and then another one, and then another one. So different people train at different levels of abstraction. The purpose of this training is really to give a 3-day feel, a 3-day introduction to really how to coach the unconscious mind, how to coach the body using the Overdurfian style. So it builds, right? So there's the basic idea: how do you first get the body to change in response to the context in which the client normally has the problem, and then leading from that, how do you extend that? How do you deal with the cases where you don't get that change in the first instance, and then how do you deal with the cases where the client goes, yes, but, right? Because now they're using their top down to argue against the change, right? Even though they may have felt change, they're going to say, yes, but...
They didn't understand how they felt the change, so they have to make sense of it.
They have to make sense of it, and if they make sense of it in a positive way, that's great. But if they make sense of it in a, well, it can't have been that easy because it only took 2 minutes to differently. Right. So they then have to push back to justify why they've had this problem for years and years and years, and then you move on to the more of the cognitive side of the change. Right.
That's sometimes, in effect, almost undoing your work.
They try and undo your work, yeah. I mean, I recall a early client where I did all this amazing change work, and she felt fantastic, and she's like, wow, I feel fantastic. And then she's literally walking out the door, and she says, it's a shame it won't work in the real world.
My God.
I just blew that whole change work because I didn't allow the conscious mind to catch up with what had taken place. Yeah. Right? That's really the key to the end of the process in terms of the Overdurfian change, is you have to allow the conscious mind not only to catch up and realize that it's changed, but to start to argue in favor of that change. So at the end of the process, you as the hypnotist want to be saying, or the coach, have you really changed? And they go, yeah, I've changed. I know I've changed.
Yeah, you get to prove it to you. Yeah.
Right.
How do you know that?
At the end of the process.
How do you know it's going to be different next time? Yes, that took a lot of years to learn to do that. I had unfortunate experiences like you in the beginning, but sometimes it just, we go to trainings like yours. I was at your training last year, and then we learn we pick up these concepts and these techniques along the way that allow us to make the change and the client to actually keep the change.
Yeah, that's the important part.
So quick question before we go, because I know one of the most prevalent things that I find people are coming for nowadays, which is, again, it's the body reacting first and then the mind freaking out, is anxiety. So that's a perfect example of how you have to work with it first on the bodily level. And so how would you work with someone who comes in and they have severe panic attacks?
Well, so there's basically two types of anxiety.
Okay.
There's a panic attack where they have a panic attack in response to a particular context.
Okay.
And this is really, in terms of the structure of the problem, it's the same as someone who's got a fear of speaking in public or a fear of flying or anything else. There's a stimulus, which the senses, it goes into their senses, it goes past the amygdala. The amygdala panics before the signal has even got to the visual cortex, right? Goes to the visual cortex, goes to the front of the brain. By this time, they're in total meltdown,
right.
And they go, here I go again,
exactly.
Right? Here my panic goes again, so that they have no top-down control at that stage because they're in a panic mode before they've even noticed what's going on. And then they build on that and they become afraid of the panic attacks.
Right.
Right. So if you have a person who has, for example, a panic-style fear of flying, the biggest fear they have is having a panic attack.
Right.
It's not the flying. It's because the panic comes first, and then the prefrontal cortex goes, "Oh crap! I'm having a panic attack." Right. So that's often the fear they walk in with. I'm scared of getting onto an airplane and freaking out.
Right.
So that's really the same as any other fear, where essentially you have to get the body in a different state when it encounters the stimulus.
Okay. So go ahead.
So you have to get them into a state of calmness, a state of confidence, some other state that's not panic, and then allow them to experience the stimulus that would normally take them into the panic attack.
You're kind of collapsing it in the brain.
You collapse it in the body.
In the body, pardon me, yes.
Right? Because now what you've basically done is you've calmed the amygdala. It's like, go to sleep, relax, amygdala, relax. And then the stimulus comes in, goes past the amygdala, but the amygdala's like, hey man, I'm chill.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the visual cortex, it goes to the front of the brain, and the front of the brain goes, oh, I didn't have a panic attack this time. That felt okay. And then you condition that, and then you get the prefrontal cortex to realize it doesn't have the response.
Right. So again, you're getting it in on all the levels, but the body first.
Right. So that's the first type. The second type, the brain is basically a generalization machine. Right. It takes an experience and generalizes it out. The more difficult case is the client who comes in and goes, I have anxiety. When do you have anxiety? I have it all the time. Right. I have free-floating anxiety. What they actually mean is they used to be anxious about something. Right. They generalized it out and became anxious about a whole bunch of things. They generalized that out and became anxious about almost everything. And then at some point, their brain and body said, "What the hell? I'll just be anxious all the time. It'll save me a lot of work." Yes. Right? Those are obviously more difficult because you have to find something to attach the anxiety onto in order to bring it down.
Right, I understand. To do the exact same thing you described earlier.
Yeah, but you have to find a connection. So you have to do something. It's often like a trick. So you'll do like maybe a re-imprinting, or you'll do something that takes them out of this free-floating anxiety and makes them anxious about something in particular. So you can then change that and then generalize out from that.
Right, right. Well, thank you for that amazing description on how to work with anxiety, and thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. So I look forward to seeing you at this year's Hypnothoughts. Everybody, Shawn is offering a 3-day pre-conference workshop on Overdurfian, and if you want to get a taste of it, it's pre, so they won't be able to get a taste of it, but if for some reason you've already signed up for another course or whatever, just definitely go to his 1 hour and get a taste of Overdurfian hypnosis.
Get a taste of what you missed.
A taste of what you missed and what you'll sign up for next year.
Yep.
Right? Okay, wonderful. We'll see you. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Didi.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.